This is the FBI. You are completely surrounded.
Then, about a month ago, the trouble arose which led to my meeting her. A new girl, Mary Jane, had joined it.
Mary Jane.
Serious? Does he not know? I imagine he's
guaranteed he does not know, of course. No, he's just trying to think of, like, because I mean, she's called Elsa.
Yeah.
So, Mary Jane, it's just the most, like, white Brit names you can think of, you know?
Innocent white girl names.
Mary Jane.
Yeah.
For fuck's sake.
A new girl, Mary Jane, had joined their group, and there was friction between Elsa and Mary Jane.
That was well written.
Yeah. So much of this is. So much of it is. The boy Elsa was sharing her mattress with at the time had apparently known Mary Jane earlier, before either had joined the group, and Mary Jane regarded Elsa as a usurper. Elsa, in turn, resented Mary Jane's none too subtle efforts to entice her boyfriend away. The result was a screaming, clawing, hair-pulling fight between the two one day, which Mary Jane, being the stronger, had won. Elsa had wandered the streets for 2 days, that's when I met her, and then she had returned to the basement commune. Mary Jane, meanwhile, had gotten on the wrong side of another of the girls in the group, and Elsa pressed this advantage by issuing an ultimatum. Either Mary Jane must go, or she, Elsa, would leave permanently. Harsh words.
Them fighting words.
Mary Jane had responded by threatening Elsa with a knife. So what happened? I asked. Look, we have...
Yeah.
Now we have full dialogue section.
Yeah.
It's like he suddenly realised he needs to put dialogue in.
I honestly think, because I keep saying how I keep forgetting it's a diary.
Yeah, he's forgotten.
Mr. Pierce keeps forgetting it's a diary, that's the problem here.
Yeah. By the time we get to the end, he'll just be writing like Captain's Log, Star Date. He'll just be writing like racist Star Trek.
I hope so.
We're not going to get much Star Trek, but we are about to get a lot of racist. So what happened? I asked. We sold her, was Elsa's simple reply. You sold her? What do you mean? I exclaimed.
Oh yeah, because he'd never do anything like that.
No, he'd just have stabbed her to death.
He'd have just bludgeoned her fucking head to pieces with a crowbar.
Whilst screaming bitch at her until Henry had to drag him away.
Whilst reliving an argument he had with his mother.
Mary Jane refused to leave after everyone sided with me, so we sold her to Cappy the Apologies for that, obviously.
I love the fact that Elsa is just
now it's
fucking
just
racist as well.
Yeah, racism is just going to be anyone who's supposed to be like morally
sympathetic,
good and sympathetic will just be casually racist, to let you know. It's like Mr. Pierce's version of petting the dog.
Yes.
Being a racist. He gave us the TV and $200 for her. Cappy the it turned out, is a Jew named Kaplan who makes his living in the white slave trade. I mean, what do you even say to that? Now we're going to probably get some long diatribe about how slavery is the worst thing you could do to a person if they're white.
Yeah.
He makes regular trips to Washington from New York for the purpose of buying runaway girls. His usual suppliers are the wolf packs. What happens to the girls after that, no one can say with certainty, but it is thought that most are confined in certain exclusive clubs in New York, where the wealthy go to satisfy strange and perverted appetites. Some, it is rumoured, are eventually sold to a Satanist club and painfully dismembered in gruesome rituals.
A Satanist club?
Some Satanist nightclub.
A Satanist club?
we're just going to conveniently forget that the last chapter he was dressing up in robes and wearing a cyanide capsule around his neck, which he's wearing now, and doing some fucked up candlelit ritual with a bunch of other Nazi killers. That's completely fine, but this is perverse and satanic. I'm sure these wealthy satanic elites, their political affiliations are all with the Black Panther Party.
Oh, of course,
Communist Pie.
Yeah.
Anyway, someone in the he follows that dismembered in satanic clothes. Anyway, someone in the commune had heard that Kaplan was in town and buying, so when Mary Jane wouldn't leave, they tied her up, located Kaplan, and made the sale. Anyway, it's like, what is the distinction between good and bad actions in this book?
I don't think there is one.
Like,
well, if white people do it, it's good. I think, although
like, he's gonna sit in judgment on this.
Yeah.
A man who like probably still has the bruises on his hand from when that woman was fighting him off in an alleyway. Like, you know, like, are you for real? I had thought I was unshockable, but I was horrified by Elsa's story of Mary Jane's fate. How? I asked in a tone of outrage. Could you sell a white girl to a Jew?
Oh, for fuck's sake! I don't know.
You thought you were unshockable.
Yeah. I don't know why. I didn't expect
Honestly,
that.
this is the Arrested Development bit where he opens the bag and it's just, you know. Yeah. Well, I really don't know why I expected.
No, I don't know what I expected.
You open this book and it's like, why did I expect anything?
Yeah. He just openly said it. Like,
exactly, because he needs everyone to understand.
Sell a white girl.
Yeah, he cannot
to a
let.
Jew. So if
oh god, if he'd sold a black girl to a white guy, would that have been okay?
That's fine. That's
presumably yes. He desperately needs you to know that he's not being moral. No. I'm not opposing this on moral grounds. We oppose this on racial grounds.
Yeah.
This is the issue when it comes to being a racist and being right wing in general. Is you need so many caveats and rules and like sub rules and exemptions and exceptions. So there can never be any consistency to it. They would have you believe that having the position that sex trafficking anyone is bad is an immoral position, and instead you should judge it on a case-by-case basis based on the race of both the perpetrator and the victim. That apparently makes more sense to them and is more humane and natural. And yet it leads them to saying things like this after having just told us he wants to have sex with a child. I had unconsciously raised my voice loud enough for my last comment to be heard by everyone in the basement. A shaggy individual got up from his mattress in front of the TV and sauntered over. What can anyone do? He asked, not really expecting an answer. He's got political connections. Some of the big Jews in New York are his customers, and I've heard that 2 or 3 congressmen go up there regularly to visit some of the clubs he supplies. Then someone should blow up the Congress, I answered. A fellow shrugged his shoulders and wandered back to the TV set. I then tried pumping Elsa for information. For a moment there I thought that was a dark direction. Even somehow an even darker direction that it's going in. Elsa tried to be helpful, but she just didn't know. She called out to the man who had strolled over earlier. Harry, aren't the people over on 29th Street, the ones who call themselves Fourth World Liberation Front, into fighting the pigs?
I love how the dialogue is just so natural.
He's got such a grasp of street people's vernacular.
Oh, yeah.
It's great how they don't all each sound like a 75-year-old fucking Nazi lich. I squeezed Elsa's hand, wished her well, and made my exit. I guess I botched things rather badly. It was incredibly naive of me to imagine that I could just walk into the dropout community and be politely directed to someone engaged in violent and illegal activity against the system. That blows any chance I may have had of making contact with anti-system militants in that particular milieu. What was I just saying? Milieu is a lich wizard word. My visit with Elsa has pretty well convinced me that in the people who share her lifestyle, there's not much potential for constructive collaboration with the organisation. They lack self-discipline and any real sense of purpose. They've given up. I almost believe that if the government would double their welfare allowances, even the bomb throwers would lose their militancy. I mean, if the government was good actually and did all the things they wanted, they wouldn't even bomb FBI buildings anymore. Well, Yeah, agree or disagree, you've got to see the logic.
I'm not sure logic is his strong suit, to be honest.
No, emotionally noncing seems to be his strong. Although we both reject the world in its present condition and have both dropped out, in a sense, the difference between the people in the organisation and Elsa's friends is that we are capable of coping and they aren't. It is a difference of human quality. Well, I agree with you on that one. Yes, I quite agree. How fragile a thing is man's civilization. How superficial it is to his basic nature, and upon how few of the teeming multitudes to whose lives it gives a pattern does it depend for its sustenance. Without the presence of perhaps 1 or 2% of the most capable individuals, the most aggressive, intelligent and hard-working of our fellow citizens, I am convinced that neither this civilization nor any civilization could long sustain itself. It would gradually disintegrate over centuries, perhaps, and the people would not have the will or the energy or the genius to patch up the cracks. But even energy and will and genius are not enough, clearly.
What the fuck would he know?
How'd that work out for the people that followed your advice, Mr. Field? Oh, you can't answer me, because you're dead too. Dead comes.
God, I wish I had a teacher as good as him when I was at school.
Yeah. Well, Joe, I've got the next best thing for you. The very next chapter of this book.
Oh,
it's all yours, buddy.
I'm not ready for this. I'm just gonna have a piss quickly first.
Never read the Turner Diaries on a full bladder.
March 21, 1993. Today, a new beginning. Quite a coincidence that it's the first day of spring. For me, it is like a return from the dead. 470 days of living death. To be back with Catherine, back with my other comrades, able to resume the struggle again after so much wasted time. The thought of these things fills me with an indescribable joy.
Sorry, what was the date on this?
March 21st, 1993.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so it
like
skipped like
2
like
years.
a year
Or,
and a half. Yeah.
Holy shit. Okay.
So much has happened since my last entry in this diary. How glad I am that Catherine was able to save it for me, that it's difficult to decide how to condense it all here. Well, first things first, it was about 4 o'clock in the morning, pitch dark, a Sunday. The first thing I remember is Catherine shaking me by the shoulder, trying to wake me up. I could hear an insistent buzzing in the background, which, in my sleep-fogged condition, I assumed was our bedroom alarm clock. "It's the warning buzzer downstairs," Catherine whispered urgently. "Somebody's outside the building." That snapped me awake, but before I could even get my feet on the floor, there was a loud crash as something trailing a stream of sparks came hurtling through the carefully boarded up bedroom window. The fucking flare.
It lands straight in a box of grenades. Boom.
Almost immediately, the room was filled with a choking cloud of gas, and I was gasping for breath in agony. The next couple of minutes are a little hazy in my memory. Bill and I raced downstairs, leaving Catherine and Carol to man the upstairs windows. Fortunately, no one had yet tried to enter the building, but as Bill and I reached the bottom of the stairs, we could hear someone outside with a bullhorn ordering us to come out with our hands up.
Shit, yeah, I guess the FBI did. It's not the only bit they were responsible.
I took a quick look through our peephole. The darkness outside had been turned bright as day by dozens of searchlights, all trained on our building. The glare kept me from seeing much of anything beyond the lights, but it was instantly clear that there were several hundred troops and policemen with lots of equipment out there. It was obviously futile to attempt to shoot our way out, but we laid down a brief barrage anyway. Half a dozen quick shots, each from the upstairs and downstairs windows, front to back, just to discourage the people outside from attempting to force a quick entry into the building. After that, we all stayed clear of the windows and doors, which were immediately riddled with a withering return fire, and concentrated on getting as much of our essential equipment out through our escape tunnel as we could. In a frantic and exhausting 3/4 of an hour, they assembled a small mountain of armaments and communications equipment in the drainage ditch at the far end of the tunnel. Although the three of them did most of the carrying.
You can be fucking mad.
Yeah, at least they were not in danger of being shot. I had bullets whistling around my ears the whole while, and I was stung at least a dozen times by splinters of concrete chipped from the wall by ricochets. Finally, we had gotten out all our small arms and ammunition, about half our bulk explosives and heavier weapons, and all the completed communications units. Bill's tools were saved because he had the tidy habit of keeping them all together in a toolbox.
Wow. Genius. Only a Nazi could do something like that. And why do they call it a toolbox?
But we abandoned most of my test equipment because it was scattered all over the shop.
We abandoned most of my testicle.
We huddled briefly in the grease pit.
That's what they'll end up naming this new America.
The grease pit. We huddled briefly in the grease pit and decided that Bill and the girls would steal a vehicle and load our things into it while I stayed in the shop and prepared a demolition charge that would cover the entrance of our escape tunnel. I would give them 30 minutes, then I would light the fuse and make my own exit. It would take the cops a couple of days to sift through the debris and discover that we had escaped. But I never made it to the wall. Somehow, I still don't understand exactly what happened. The charge in the grease pit exploded prematurely.
Fucking blew himself up. Oh my god, this is amazing. It's actually it's eerily similar to what actually happened.
Even his death was inspired by this book.
Oh my god. What a pack of fuckwits.
Perhaps a ricocheting bullet hit the primer, or perhaps sparks from one of the tear gas grenades which were still being lobbed into the place ignited the fuse. In any event, the concussion knocked me cold and very nearly killed me. I regained consciousness on an operating table in a hospital emergency room. The next few days were extraordinarily painful ones. I wince at the memory.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been better if he'd died, but at least he suffered horribly in the days afterwards.
I was taken directly from the emergency room to an interrogation cell in the sub-basement of the FBI building.
Oh, so he's been captured.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that it was, the others had picked him up and he'd gotten away.
What I love is that clearly what's coming now is going to be interrogations where he refuses to talk, even though, like...
Puts them in his
Yeah,
in their
yeah.
place, but instead,
But
in real life,
yeah.
they just flipped to me.
Exactly, yeah. Although I was still disorientated and in extreme pain from my wounds, I was handled very roughly. Aww.
Oh, how rude of them.
Forced to stand in the centre of the cell while half a dozen FBI agents shouted questions at me from all sides. I could hardly do more than mumble incoherently. Even in my agony, however, I felt a surge of elation when I realised from my interrogator's questions that the others must have gotten away safely. Over and over again, the men around me screamed out the same questions. Where are the others? How many were in the building with you? How did they get out? Oh wow, and from that you managed to piece together that they obviously escaped.
What's really funny is that it's like if you were a police officer in that context, you would almost certainly just tell him, well, we caught your friends, so we know everything, so you might as well just tell us.
And then he probably just
and then he'd just go,
yeah.
oh, alright, well, you got us then, well, obviously you know that. That's what they do.
Yeah.
They lie all the fucking time, that's what they do. They don't go in there and say, well, you thoroughly embarrassed us and we don't have anything on you, so you better confess or we'll have to let you go. I was able to read between the lines if I kept my mouth shut. You fucking twat. Again, just knows nothing. The guy just knows fucking nothing.
No.
Dumbass.
The questions were punctuated with repeated slaps and kicks until I finally sagged to the floor, mercifully unconscious again.
Mercifully for us.
Yeah. I ached all over, with the handcuffs causing me particular agony, but my head was nearly clear. I find that very hard to believe.
Yeah, not the word I would use. Your fucking head, mate. Also, I will say, if this were a Kurt Schlichter book, he would have described the egregious amount of piss and shit.
Yes,
yeah. There'd have been a whole extended scene of him trying to get up in the big puddle of piss and shit. His feet are slipping in it and he falls back in it. And then like bits of it go in his mouth and but he swallows it because, he's a real man. That's, sometimes you just got to do what you've got to do, And maybe sometimes you even enjoy it a little bit.
My first thought was one of regret that I no longer had my poison capsule.
Same.
I cursed myself for having failed to take the precaution of carrying the capsule in my mouth before the explosion. That would have been so funny.
Yeah.
Like the explosion just makes him bite down on
Bangs
it.
his head as he comes downstairs. That's when they realise it's a fucking pizza delivery guy. Wrong address, banging on the door.
I was alone with my aches and sombre thoughts for only a few minutes before my second interrogation session began. This time, 2 FBI agents came into my cell, followed by a physician and 3 other men, 2 of the last 3 being large, muscular-looking Negroes.
So fucking cruising with Al Pacino.
Yeah.
Black guy comes in with cowboy hat. That That's how Pierce imagines every police interrogation actually goes.
I want to see a lawyer.
The third man was a stooped, white-haired figure of about 70.
Can we guess what his ethnicity is going to be?
A nasty little smile flickered around the corners of his coarse-looking mouth, which occasionally split into a leering grin, revealing the gold caps on his tobacco-stained teeth.
Come on, man. Like, can you try? Can you even try?
No.
To be fucking normal? Like, you have to do these ridiculous fucking caricatures?
It's the fact that his insane rantings and the way his mind is obviously just going and going and going. It
Just running on empty.
yeah. But it fixates on just horror, you know what I mean?
Like grotesquerie.
Yeah.
Everything's like this lurid, vivid, disgusting carnival fucking freak show. Like a hall of mirrors. Everyone's this grotesque.
Especially his political views.
Yeah.
After the physician had quickly checked me over, the two FBI agents jerked me to my feet and then took up positions near the door. The session was turned over to the sinister-looking fellow with the gold teeth.
He's got gold cap, tobacco stained teeth.
Like, if they're gold cap, how can you tell they're tobacco?
Yeah, the image could you imagine seeing this in like a film? How insane that would look.
Speaking with a thick Hebrew accent and a disarmingly mild professional manner, he introduced himself to me as Colonel Saul Rubin of Israeli military intelligence. I understand that you were not very cooperative last night. Let me warn you that it will go very hard for you if you fail to answer my questions. I have a great deal of experience over the last 45 years in extracting information from people who did not wish to cooperate with me. In the end, they all told me everything I wanted to know, both the Arabs and the Germans, but it was a very unpleasant experience for those who were stubborn.
The Germans?
Yeah, he's actually about to address that in the next
Oh
sentence.
my god.
Then, after a brief pause, yes, some of those Germans back in 1945 and 1946, particularly the ones from the SS, were quite stubborn.
He's trying to make us hate this guy for torturing
literal Nazis.
Actual Nazis. Like, he's yet to even mention the Holocaust.
Oh yeah.
He's not even mentioned the Holocaust, and now he's going to portray the relationship between Jews and the Nazis was basically that, the Jews love to torture the Nazis. Those poor Germans, those poor SS Germans getting tortured by evil Israelis. Oh, terrifying, shocking, evil. Fuck me.
The apparently satisfying recollection brought another hideous grin to Rubin's face, and I could not suppress a shudder. I remembered the horrible photographs of one of our members, who was a former army intelligence officer, had shown me years ago of German prisoners who had their eyes gouged out, their teeth pulled, their fingers cut off, and their testicles smashed by sadistic interrogators, many wearing US Army uniforms, prior to their conviction and execution by military courts as war criminals.
He's actually trying to appeal to our sense of morality and position him as the good guy and this guy as irredeemably evil by appealing to our sense of humanity in regards to the actual Nazis. And not just random people, like the SS, the people who care. And why is it, Mr. Pierce, that people don't have any sympathy for the SS and for the German High Command of the Third Reich? Why is that? It's like the big fat fucking Nazi elephant in the room you just for some reason haven't even alluded to yet. You fucking mental cunts. You fucking again the transparency of it as well.
Yeah.
Like how clever he thinks he is and how dumb he really is.
I wanted nothing so much as to be able to smash the leering Jewish face before fuck's sake, I've got to read that again.
Don't fucking
Under Rubin's instructions, they proceeded to give me a vicious, thorough and scientific beating. Good. When they finished
and well deserved.
The subsequent interrogation sessions were worse, much worse, because a public show trial was planned for me, presumably in the Adolf Eichmann manner. God, poor Eichmann. Note to reader, Adolf Eichmann was a middle-level German official during World War II. 15 years after the war, in 39 BNE, he was kidnapped in South America by Jews. After fiendish torture, Eichmann was displayed in a soundproof glass cage during a 4-month show trial in which he was condemned to death for crimes against the Jewish people. Adolf Eichmann.
I mean, I name-checked Eichmann earlier on as like an example of this like fucking evil fucking Nazi cunt.
Yeah, because he's one of the worst.
And
he's
now
easily one of the worst of them.
Yeah, and now he's bringing him up as like poor Adolf
Eichmann. These horrible Jews, they
finally captured him. What was he doing in South America? Huh?
Fucking
What was he doing there?
Kidnapped by Jews.
Yes, and put on trial for the things he did.
Yeah.
It's like, I have my problems with the fucking government of Israel and the actions of the Israeli state.
Yeah, that
Do not
ain't
get
one
me
of
wrong.
them. Yeah.
That ain't fucking one of them.
No.
Are you fucking kidding me? Like, whacking out fucking Nazis is like one of the few fucking things we can all agree on. I think. Like, are you fucking, like, what the fuck? To be that open.
Yeah.
To just be like, poor widow Adolf Eichmann. Are you fucking kidding?
For days at a time, I was completely out of my mind.
Years, sometimes.
And as Ruben had predicted, I eventually told him everything he wanted to know. No human being could have done otherwise. They never tortured him. They didn't lay a fucking finger
It's
on
just
him.
all bullshit.
He just he woke up in the hospital and immediately just
quacked like a fucking duck from day one.
Conveniently, this man who is famous for gouging eyes and cutting off fingers, they
didn't do anything. They
just-
left any scars.
Yeah.
They didn't need to. They didn't want to because of the show trial. What's that? Yes. Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, I did tell them. How did you know?
During the torture sessions, the 2 FBI agents who were always present as spectators sometimes turned a bit pale, and when Rubin had his 2 black assistants thrust a long, blunt rod up into my rectum, so that I was screaming and wriggling like a skewered pig. One looked as if he were going to be sick, but they never raised an objection.
Jesus Christ.
Why did he write that?
Well, yeah, like the obvious, like, pardon the pun, self-insert. He puts himself in this book as like this rugged, like, working man who gets tortured by a Jewish guy and 2 black guys and has a big rod stuck up his arse while everyone watches and feels sick by it happening. We're in Schlichter country now.
Yeah, well, that fucking rod certainly is.
Slip and sliding into Schlichter country now. Oh my
Why did he write that?
I mean, also, I mean,
does he has a thing. He has a thing. He wants to
be tortured by
big black
guys,
men while a little Jewish man looks on.
laughs and tickles, He wants to be sexually humiliated and dominated,
Why did he write that? Despite Rubin's exquisitely painful expertise, I am now thoroughly convinced that the organisation's interrogation techniques are much more effective than the system's. We are scientific, whereas the system is merely brutal. Literally paragraphs ago you used the term scientific.
Yeah, he just said he was scientifically beaten. I guess his brain got a little frazzled there while he was thinking about that big rod on his arm.
Although Rubin broke my resistance and got answers to his questions, fortunately he failed to ask many of the right questions. Oh yeah, because he's obviously shit at this, given that he's been doing it for 45 years.
Yeah.
Obviously you're much smarter than him.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah. He's proved that time and time again. Like when he blew himself up.
Or when he went to fucking creep on an underage girl.
Got nicked
because of it. When he had finally finished with me, after nearly a month-long nightmare, I had told him the names of most of the members of the organisation that I knew, the locations of their hideouts, and who had been involved in various operations against the system. And, of course, I explained exactly how the other members of my unit had escaped capture. But since they were able to anticipate exactly what the political police would learn from me, they were able to nullify any potential damage. Alright. Alright.
That's
Yeah.
intensely convenient.
Yeah. And again, it's like, well, I did break under the torture, I told them, but fortunately, they couldn't do anything with the information because I'm playing 40 kids. None were arrested during this time, and I was eventually transferred to the special prison compound at Fort Belvoir, where nearly 200 other organisation members were being held.
I say Fort Belvoir, it's Hotel Belvoir. Oh, they tortured me really bad there up in the penthouse. The room service was terrible. What's that? Yes, I did tell them absolutely everything. Again, yes, everything. I told them everything.
The government was afraid to put us into ordinary prisons because of the danger that the organisation might free us, and also, I suspect, because they were afraid we might indoctrinate other white prisoners.
That's something actually I completely neglected to mention before, when it was they would put them into cells just packed with black only prisoners and this kind of stuff. The fact that it's obviously even back then, Mr. Pierce, I have to believe you are familiar with who runs the American prison system, right? In terms of the gangs inside the prison.
Yeah.
Because it's not black people who are the big players in prisons, right? It's Nazis. It's your friends.
Yeah.
It's the people who read your books and think that's
you.
fucking... Yeah, it's you. It's you, Mr. Pierce. And now suddenly it's they were scared to put me in a normal prison because of the inordinate influence that Nazis have in prisons. But before it was I chucked you in prison and you just immediately get eaten by all the evil rabid blacks in there. It's okay. Interesting little switch up there.
Yeah. And there I spent the next 14 months. Many people consider solitary confinement to be especially harsh treatment, but it was a blessing for me.
It's a blessing for me and my anus. My incredibly loose anus. Mr. Pierce and his incredibly loose Nazi anus.
I was still in such a depressed and abnormal frame of mind that I needed some time alone to straighten myself out. And of course, it was nice not to have to worry about blacks, which would have been a real curse in any ordinary prison. I enjoyed solitary confinement because at least I didn't have to worry about blacks.
I thought you were making that up.
No, that's
it's so fucking dumb. What the fuck?
Yeah, no, that was.
Oh my god, his use of language is just incredible at times.
Out of nowhere. Yeah. I love that. It's I needed time alone to straighten myself out. And of course, it was nice not to have to worry about blacks. Yeah, I think you do need to sort
I think you might need a little bit more time to straighten yourself out now. I don't think those 14 months did shit. I think we need to get a bigger rod, mate. For you, mate.
Spare the rod, spoil the child. No one who has not been subjected to the terror and agony to which I was can understand the profound and lasting effect of such an experience. I have lost all fear of death. I have not become more reckless, less so, if anything, but nothing holds... What the fuck is he...
Well, Joe, what he's saying is the key to enlightenment
is a big rod.
Directly through the anus. The bigger the rod, the better.
I can be much harder on myself than before, and also harder on others when necessary. I fucking said this earlier as a joke. I actually said this earlier as a joke. Woe betide any whining conservative.
Well done.
Oh my god, yes!
Jesus.
Is he going to say woe betide?
Yeah.
Woe betide any whining conservative, responsible or otherwise, who gets in the way of our revolution when I am around.
Gonna whip the rod.
Yeah.
Stick it up there. I carry that with me. Literally. Shit to this scene. I do love that as well. He's had this whole capture and torture thing that obviously fucked him up, and then he's just but anyway, I recovered from that, and now I'm stronger and cooler than ever.
Yeah.
It's oh wow, great. That's really convenient for you. It's funny how the torture was a terrible thing when done to the Nazis, but somehow it's actually a good productive thing for him.
It's because he's
stronger and better.
It's because he's a stronger man. He's the strongest of all Nazis. He's the uberest of all men. Actions were fewer than before, but they were much, much bigger. It became apparent to us last fall that the revolution had entered a new and more decisive phase. But more on that later.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a diary, is it?
Yeah. Last night was the most important action of all for those of us at Fort Belvoir. My first inkling that a breakout was in progress came when I was wakened by the sound of a machine gun being fired from one of the guard towers.
I think something might be afoot here.
It's funny as well how, like, in all of the other books, we talk so much about the characters, or the main character, you know, whereas with this, I don't even, like, have a picture of his
Not
face
like
in my
a
mind.
vague
Like,
idea of what he would look
no,
like.
I'm just thinking about fucking Mr. Pierce, that's it.
Yeah.
Finally, the wooden door of my cell burst inward under the blow of a sledgehammer, and I was free. Altogether, we lost 18 prisoners and 4 rescuers. Altogether, we lost 18 prisoners and 4 rescuers killed and 61 prisoners recaptured. But 442 of us, according to the news report on the radio, made it to the waiting trucks outside the base. That wasn't the end of the excitement, but let it suffice to say that by 4 o'clock this morning we had successfully dispersed to more than 24 pre-selected safe houses. After a few hours of rest, I slipped into a set of civilian work clothes, took the set of false identification cards that had been carefully and masterfully prepared for me, and, carrying a newspaper and a lunch pail, made my way along the morning job goers to the rendezvous point I was assigned.
The language is just so... It's like, where are you from?
Yeah,
what
yeah.
fucking century do you fucking come from, mate?
As Bill drove off into the rush hour traffic, I held my beloved Catherine in my arms once again.
But the way he's exposing himself, like, in this book, like, sometimes, literally. Like, I'm honestly surprised, like, with the paedophile stuff, I'm genuinely surprised he hasn't just, like, written his name and address and actually started literally confessing to crimes in the text of this book. It's ridiculous.
March 24, 1993. Today I was tried on the charge of oath breaking, the most serious offence with which a member of the order can be charged. It was a harrowing experience, but I knew it was coming, and I'm enormously relieved to have it behind me, despite the outcome.
Let's, we don't need to make that joke. Everyone's already made
We're
it
above
for us.
that.
Yeah.
We're clearly
Yeah.
above that.
You keep telling yourself.
I must have reviewed in my mind 100 times the circumstances of my capture, trying to convince myself that my behaviour had been blameless, that I had fallen alive into the hands of my captors through no fault of my own.
I can believe, he spends a lot of his time just completely absolving himself of any responsibility for his actions.
As an attractive receptionist ushered me into a conference room in a large suite of law offices, my apprehension was mixed with gratitude for the 3-day period of recuperation I had been allowed since the breakout. I had just slipped into the robe which I found waiting for me on
Actually made him dress in the robe. Can you imagine that someone gets the wrong door and they like, hey Frank, how's it going, stood there with the dagger's face. He's like tied up on the pentagram in robes.
a fucking goat's head
Yeah.
bleeding into a bowl.
Yeah.
I had just slipped into the robe which I found waiting for me on a coat rack when another door opened and 8 other robed and hooded figures walked into the room and silently took seats around a large table. Just purely for the aesthetics of it. And I know this is a book and it's not a film, but like if you're having a group of people in robes, make sure they just stay standing because like how ridiculous they all look sitting there. Like pulling it up. Yeah.
Chair like scraping along the floor as he tries to get out, pouring himself a glass of water. To move his hood out of the way.
They get a straw.
Yeah.
Just go straight into the blackness.
That's so fucking stupid. Like, this is the intellectual powerhouse who was like the figurehead of the fucking far right in America for like 3 decades.
Just an utter like drivelling moron.
This is why he was selling them. And like the fact that not only did they buy the rest of the book, but that fucking idiot who fucking blew himself up with the fucking grenades, they called themselves The Order. Named them after these fucking bathrobe fucking motherfuckers. What the fuck?
I mean, do you think they had meetings where they wore robes?
I'm guessing
if they called
they
themselves
did.
The Order,
I'm
right,
guessing
you have
they
to
did.
assume that they
went the whole way.
cosplayed.
Yeah.
Fucking pathetic, isn't it?
They drew fan art.
Yeah. The proceedings were brisk and bathed in an air of formality. I suppose they're all wearing robes, aren't they? I mean, they're wearing their formal robes. When the others had finally finished discussing my case and had reached a decision, I was summoned back into the conference room. While I stood at one end of the table, Major Williams, seated at the other end, announced his verdict. I'm not going to read it again. His words, to the extent I can remember them, were as follows. Earl Turner, we have weighed your performance as a member of this order on 2 grounds, and we have found you wanting on both. Because of this failure of judgment on your part, your period as a probationary member of the order is being extended for 6 months. Furthermore, your time as a prisoner will not count as a part of your probation, therefore you will not be permitted the right of union before March of next year, at the earliest.
God, brutal punishment. This is like Magahat Romance with the fucking country club, fucking feminists at the golf club and that, handing out like 3-week fucking punishments and shit.
You and your children and your children's children. For 3 weeks. We understand, of course, that you did not make a conscious decision to violate your oath. We have carefully looked into the circumstances of your capture, and we are aware of the interrogation techniques the political police now use against our people.
They all sort of look at each other.
If you were merely a soldier in any other army in the world, you would be held blameless. But the order is not like any other army. Yeah, true that. We have claimed for ourselves the right to decide the fate of all our people and eventually to rule the world in accordance with our principles.
Because they're dressed in robes. They're dressed in robes right now and saying this, and he's saying it's the Jews that are satanic and want to rule the world and dress in robes and do these mad rituals and how evil they are. Like, can you get any more on the nose? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, if you presented this situation to anyone else, it would sound like an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. And yet he's describing the good guys. All I can think of is the fucking Hot Fuzz.
Oh yeah!
The greater good. The greater good. That's all I can think of.
You should be ashamed. Calling yourself a community that cares.
Oh, but we do care, Nicholas.
It's all about the greater good.
The greater good. How can this be for the greater good? The greater good. Shut it!
If we are to be worthy of this right, then we must be willing to accept the responsibility which goes with it. Each day we make decisions and carry out actions which result in the death... For fuck's sake, why does he have to fucking talk like this?
Yeah, I'll admit, it's a weird way of talking.
Each day we make decisions and carry out actions which result in the deaths of white persons. Many of them innocent of any offence which we consider punishable. Our criterion is the ultimate good of our race. We must maintain for ourselves a standard of conduct much higher than we demand of the general public or even of ordinary members of the organisation. I'm sure they exist. In particular, we must never accept...
Ordinary is a very liberal use of the word ordinary then.
Just your ordinary common garden Nazi hooligan.
Nazi cult member.
Yeah. The room was perfectly still, but I could hear a buzzing in my ears, and the floor seemed to sway under my feet. Some of us here today have argued that this consideration, setting a firm example for others, should be the sole determinant of your fate. But others have argued that, because you had not yet achieved full membership in this order at the time in question, because you had not yet participated in the right of union, your conduct can be reasonably judged by a different standard than would be applied to someone who had completed his probationary period and achieved union.
This talk of unions of the fact is like we're actually going to get deeper into this cult later. We're going to get even more.
Yeah.
Like I'm just thinking of like fucking Los Illuminados from Resident Evil 4, like Sadler, and they're going to bring the fucking Plaga in and fucking stick it in him like.
To show my appreciation, I will help you awaken from your world of cliches.
All that he's talked about since we've been reading today is like his admission of being a paedophile. So like it's just insane. He's a...
Where do we start?
He's a paedophile.
Yep.
He's a cult member, cult leader.
Yeah.
I mean, again, because he was actually a cult leader as well. So all this stuff
is
is
all
like
it's legit.
Yeah. He seemingly has a thing about rods and his anus
and black men
and
Jews
large
doing
black men
these
and,
things.
Yeah. I'm starting to get a suspicion that not all was well with Prince Piers. Our decision has not been easy, but now you must hear it and you must abide by it. First, you must satisfactorily complete your extended period of probation. Then, at some time after the end of that period, you will be permitted union, but only on a conditional basis.
This is so fucking stupid. The minutiae of the fucking rules of this fucking Nazi cult. Like, what the fuck? All this tedium could be avoided by simply not having them be members of a fucking cult.
Yeah.
As well as a terrorist organisation.
If they'd have just
But
left the whole cult
that is
thing out
clearly
of it.
just not.
No.
They have to be a
It has to be a cult. It has to be a cult. And I have to be in charge.
I am the rod master. Now assume the position.
The hiding of the rod.
The clasping of the rod. I cannot get over what we've read.
It's like a sentence that's just like, why has he written this? Why has he put
Why
that
is
in?
any
Why
of
is
this
it
here? What the fuck? Jesus Christ.
The condition will be that you undertake a mission whose successful completion can reasonably be expected to result in your death. If you complete it successfully, the act of completion will remove the condition from your union. Then, even though you die, you will continue to live in us and in our successors for as long as our order endures, just as with any other member who achieves union and then loses his life. And, if by some chance you should survive your mission, you may then take your place in our ranks with no stain on your record. Do you understand everything I have said? I nodded and answered, yes, I understand, and I accept your judgment without reservation. It is just and proper. I have never expected to survive the struggle in which we are now engaged, and I am grateful that I will be allowed to make a further contribution to it. I am also grateful.
You're joking. Jesus! This is a full direct verbatim quote from memory. He's writing in his diary now. This is like fucking Book of the New Sun with the fucking Alzheimer where they drink it. You will live on after you die within the fucking order. What the fuck is this?
That is like one of the most embarrassing sections of the book so far. It's like it's literally just like Major Williams still fucking talking.
Yeah.
And then when he finally shuts up,
it somehow gets worse.
It somehow becomes fucking worse. It's like,
We did wonder if it was going to be suicide nukes Washington. It is possible. It's still possible.
March 25. The organisation has shifted the main thrust of its attacks from tactical personal targets to strategic economic targets. I have felt for a long time that this change is necessary. Apparently, two things forced Revolutionary Command to the same conclusion. The fact that we were not recruiting enough new members to make up our losses in the war of attrition against the system, and the fact that neither our blows against the system nor the system's increasingly repressive responses to these blows were having any really decisive effect on the public attitude towards the system.
Yeah, hurry the fuck up, man. Shut the fuck up.
When he talks about like the system being repressive, and it's like, you're literally Nazis.
Yeah. Like your plan.
And you believe you're fighting for freedom.
Yeah, your
you
plan
think there's
is
freedom
genocide.
through Nazis.
Your plan is genocide.
Yeah.
You're talking about repression.
Yeah. And even the people that survive, that get to live in the glorious utopia,
are going to live in absolute hell.
Yeah, every aspect of your life is controlled by these
hooded, robed figures. Who could have seen that this guy would give like that perfect and actual expression of the ideology and the rot within its centre? The entire description of everything that's wrong with the world is that it's run by sadistic murderers who justify their actions based on their twisted ideologies, and they all gather in secretive rooms where they don robes and hoods and have candlelit rituals and do these insane, violent, barbarous acts because they wish to dominate and control the world. Anyway, here's my vision for the future in which we all decide to get together in hoods and robes. It's like your fantasy vision of the enemy is your fantasy vision of who you wish to become. The Jews are not doing any of these things. This is just what you desire to do. It's unreal. It's fucking unreal.
Our whole strategy against the system was failing. It was failing because the great bulk of white Americans were not responding to the situation in the way we had hoped they would. That is, we had counted on a positive, imitative response to our propaganda of the deed, but it was not forthcoming.
Why would you hope for that? Well, we blew some places up, you know, which we knew would upset them, but we figured that they'd come back round when they realised that we were fucking racist. And why did you think that?
Sure, a dozen or so synagogues were burned, and there was an overall rise in the level of politically motivated violence, but it was generally misdirected and ineffective.
Oh.
Like the way it's just... I mean, sure, a few synagogues were set on fire, which, you know...
Which was nice.
Yeah.
But somehow it didn't do anything. It's like, maybe the problem is that what you're fighting isn't real, and those strategies aren't going to achieve anything.
No.
If Earl had burned the synagogue, it would have been a revolutionary blow against the system and its lackeys. But when somebody else does it, it's just foolish and misdirected.
Yeah.
Then they had a rod up their arse, right? He's like jumping away from the suicide mission, and they take a shot, and the bullet ricochets and the rod up his arse.
What is really precious to the average American is not his freedom or his honour or the future of his race, but his paycheck. He complained when the system began busing his kids to black schools 20 years ago, but he was allowed to keep his station wagon and his fiberglass speedboat, so he didn't fight.
Oh no, the worst thing ever, being near a black person. Oh no. How the fuck do you think the black people feel being around you cunts? What the fuck is wrong with you? Jesus Christ. It's like, who's the bigger threat? It's like, fuck me. Again, the attitude they have that like it's black people that are genetically predisposed to violence and aggression and therefore are inferior. And yet just neglects to mention the slave trade and the untold millions brutalised by that purely based on their race. You don't think that's a factor in maybe condemning white genes and the genetics of the white man? No?
Apparently not.
No, apparently not. And the reason why he doesn't condemn it is because they were exploiting their labour, so that makes it okay. They built a civilization on it. In other words, you might say, Mr. Pierce was collecting a paycheck.
Yes.
So he thought it was fine. He put up with it. He's a coper. What a pathetic little shit. He's exactly who he's attacking.
Fight? Why would you fight that? Oh, my children have to be
As
near
if
black
that's
people.
the issue again. It's like, people are controlled
Yeah.
by this promise of stability, especially when we create an economic environment in which you need to go along in order to live, because you can't really sustain yourself or survive on your own without money, and that money only comes from one place. But the idea that it's like the straw that should have broke the camel's back was racial integration of schools, that's the issue. They should have thrown off the shackles of oppression in order to re-segregate the schools in the name of freedom.
Exactly.
Tyranny.
It's such bollocks.
Yeah, it's so transparently bollocks, and when he just says it, he puts those thoughts and ideas one after the other, and just immediately exposes himself
exactly.
as a fraud.
He says it all in the least flattering way possible. You would think sometimes that he was on our side.
Like the whole cult shit, where it's literally a complete mirror image of their version of what the evil Jewish cabal banking conspiracy is. It's like, how is this not a fucking joke?
The plain, horrible truth is that we have been trying to evoke a heroic spirit of idealism which just isn't there anymore.
No, there it is. You're wrong, Mr. Pierce, we found it.
What the organisation began doing about 6 months ago is treating Americans realistically. For the first time, namely, like a herd of cattle. Since they are no longer capable of responding to an idealistic appeal, we began appealing to things they can understand. Fear and hunger. We will make them fear us more than they fear the system. We will treat them exactly the way they deserve to be treated. You see,
there you go.
Earlier I was just saying how they fucking hate white people every bit as much as they hate black people. And he just...
Now we're going to just replace the system. It's not even high. We're going to be worse. We're going to just abuse them in the same way. Fuck them. Let's starve them. Let's bully them, fuck them, kill them. No higher ideology, no humanity, no principle, nothing. Just hatred and violence, that's it. Sorry, I was quoting Mr. Like for his final words.
Now he's dead. Is it legal for me to say I wish I could kill him?
Yeah,
a bit of a grey area,
I guess so,
suppose,
because obviously, who can report you for
Yeah.
making it? You can't make a death threat
against the dead man, can I? So yeah, excellent. I want to kill him IRL.
Yeah, I'm going to kill William Luther. What the fuck are you going to do?
In Houston, for example, hundreds of thousands went for nearly 2 weeks without electricity last September. The food in their refrigerators and freezers quickly spoiled, as did the perishables in their supermarkets. There were 2 major food riots by hungry Houstonians before the army was able to set up enough relief stations to handle everyone. Hungry Houstonians.
Hungry Houstonians.
Yeah.
I love that game. It's so great that the Houston stuff is just like straight out of Kurt Schlichter. The food riots now and shit.
The effects of these actions are not decisive yet, but if we can keep it up, they will be. The public reaction has already convinced us of that. That reaction can certainly not be considered friendly to us on the whole.
There was something line there about something not being friendly on his whole. Just that's still playing on his mind, you know? March 28th. Are you not enjoying this? Where do I begin?
I like the bit where he got a rod shoved up his ass.
Yeah, to think that was like the one glimmer of hope and beauty in the world that we're left to cling to is that rod being shoved up his arse. That's just how bad the rest of this has been.
Can you imagine, like, someone that you knew well? If they fucking, I've written a book, I'd like you to read it. And you're like, okay, sure, man, I'll read your book. Of course I'll read your book. And then you read it, and it's that.
It would be like me giving Sleeping Giant to someone, but meaning every word. Imagine the reaction you would get. Except that's better written than this.
Yes, it is, yes. I mean, almost anything I can think of is better written.
Yeah, I've read menus with more compelling narratives than this piece of shit.
I'd love to expose him to the vacuum of space.
March 28, 1993. I'm finally back in the swing of things now. Over the weekend, Catherine answered many questions for me and gave me the details, especially about local developments, which I failed to get from Henry Friday. And then there is Bill's own project, on which he needs some technical assistance. Counterfeiting. That's what those fucking Nazis were doing when they got caught. That fella they were counterfeiting. Oh my god. So they literally just aped like everything he wrote in this book and it just completely fucked them at every step.
That is beautiful. The fact that they took this as a manual and they followed the instructions to the letter and it fucking just completely ruined, like they're all literally dead or in jail.
When did Mr. Pierce die?
2002.
Shame he never got to see Barack Obama in office. He would love that.
Could have shat that rod right out his ass. Died on the spot. Note to the reader. In the last days of the Great Revolution, the organisation was dumping such huge quantities of counterfeit money that the government, in desperation, outlawed all paper money, requiring all monetary transaction to take place either in coin or by cheque. This move played havoc with public morale and was one of the factors leading to the final success of the revolution. And then when they tried it for real,
it just
fucking
got
nicked, they flipped, and then they got fucking blown to pieces.
It was the end of them, like.
They got nicked, flipped and fucked. In that order. The four of us live above the shop like we did over the old place, but we don't have to keep the windows blacked out. So far as the world is concerned, we're just 2 young couples in the printing business together.
This is riveting, isn't it?
Oh yeah. The organisation has no choice about establishing new identities for all of us who are underground. A person without a documented identity simply can't function in this society any longer. One can't buy groceries or even ride a bus without showing either a driver's licence or one of the new identity cards the government has begun issuing. Can't get on a bus. You gotta fill out a form. Like 3 different kinds of identification, and the bus will pick you up in 6 to 8 weeks. I just have to remember that my new name is David J. Bloom. I am really being ribbed about that. The organisation decided to do it right and give us genuine credentials, even though that's a slow and difficult job. A few special units handle that task with cold-blooded ruthlessness, but the demand for new credentials still far exceeds the supply. So basically they have Henry out there with a big pile of shoes and jewellery and people's clothes out in the tent in the Appalachian fucking hills. Hiker after hiker, seeing their IDs suddenly turning up in some Nazi boy's hand on the West Coast. Fantastic.
Good old Henry, eh? Good old serial murdering Henry.
It also appears that the system has become even more ruthless in its campaign against us. A number of our people, perhaps as many as 50 for the whole country, have been murdered by professional killers in the last 4 months. When our people first began to disappear or to be found floating in the river with their hands tied behind their backs and 6 or 7 bullet holes in their heads, there was a widespread assumption among the organisation rank and file that these killings were internal disciplinary actions by the organisation itself. In fact, there was a period last fall when we were losing more members because of disciplinary executions than anything else.
Yeah, that read's true.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That was a time when morale was very low, and it was necessary to use extreme methods to convince waverers to remain steadfast in their obligations to the organisation.
Not shooting them 6 or 7 times in the head.
I'm not sure that they were even, like, executing people who'd done anything. It was just like, people are feeling a bit upset right now. Maybe we should kill a few of their friends to cheer them up. But it was immediately apparent to revolutionary command, and it soon became apparent to everyone else that a new element had entered the picture. From our contacts inside one of the federal police agencies, we learned that our people are being killed by 2 groups, a special Israeli assassination squad and an assortment of mafia hitmen under contract to the government of Israel. I love where his mind wanders. The absolute insanity of it. Note to the reader. The Mafia was a criminal confederation composed primarily of Italians and Sicilians, but usually masterminded by Jews, which flourished in the United States in the 8 decades prior to the Great Revolution.
The Mafia is run by the Jews. The fucking Mafia. And also, when he says the Mafia was an organisation predominantly made up of Italians and Sicilians. No, it was exclusively made up of Italians and Sicilians. In fact, you could not join the Mafia unless you were Italian or Sicilian. Run by the Jews. Run by the masterminded by the Jews. The Sicilian Mafia.
Masterminded by Jews. Yeah.
An explicitly Catholic organisation.
The Mafia remained in existence until virtually all its members, more than 8,000 men, were rounded up and executed in a single massive operation by the organisation during the mopping up period which followed the revolution. We have made some reprisals in New Orleans, for example. We mined the nightclub, which served as the local Mafia hangout. When the bombs went off and the place burst into flames during a birthday celebration for one of their underbosses, the fleeing patrons were met with merciless hails of machine gun fire from our people, who were stationed on rooftops across from the only 2 exits. More than 400 persons lost their lives there that night, including approximately 60 members of the Mafia. So, like, literally not even half
just
of the people were even vaguely related. I love this as a just pure fantasy of how Mr. Pierce thinks he'd just take down the Mafia.
Yeah, he's the Punisher now.
April 2. Supply problems solved, at least temporarily. It took 2 days of telephoning just to find the watches I was looking for. Then they had to be sent down to the Washington warehouse from Philadelphia. I told the man in Washington I was in a big hurry for them and would send someone out right away with a certified check for $12,000 to pick them up. He said they would be waiting for me in the front office, and they were. Catherine really wanted to go. The girl has a wild streak in her that someone who doesn't know her well would never suspect. We presented ourselves to the manager and asked for our package. He asked for the certified check. I have it, I said, and I'll give it to you as soon as I check to see that the watches are the ones I ordered. My plan was to take the watches and just walk out the door, leaving the manager yelling for his check. But when the man came back with our package, 2 husky warehouse workers came with him, and one took up a position between us and the door. They were taking no chances. I opened the package, checked the contents, and drew my pistol. Catherine also drew her gun, and she waved the man near the door away, but then the door would not open when she tried it. She turned her gun on the worker, and he quickly explained, "They have to push the buzzer in the office to unlock the door." I whirled back toward the manager and snarled at him, "Get this door open now, or I'll pay you for these watches with hot lead."
Oh my god, that's so embarrassing.
This is Mr. Pierce's tough guy act. But he nimbly ducked out another doorway from the office into the storage area and slammed the heavy metal door behind him before I could react. Beginning to feel desperate, I decided to shoot the lock off the door. It took 4 shots to do it, partly because my nervous haste spoiled my aim. We ran to the car, but the warehouse manager was already there. The bastard was letting the air out of our tyres. I slammed the barrel of my revolver down on his head and sent him sprawling in the gravel. Fortunately, he had only partially deflated one tyre and the car could still be driven. Catherine and I wasted no more time getting away from there. What a life!
Shut the fuck up.
I also got Bill's UV inspection unit working for him, and he will be ready to print his first greenbacks as soon as I pick up his ink additives Monday. First greenbacks. His product won't be perfect, but it should be close enough. In particular, it should pass all the standard tests used in banks to spot counterfeit bills. They'll have to take it to a lab to tell it's phony. Apparently not. Apparently not. And I finished designing 3 different bomb mechanisms that should pass an X-ray examination without arousing suspicion. One of them fits into an umbrella handle, batteries, timer and all. The main shaft of the umbrella can easily fit deep inside my rectum. In each case, of course, the bulk explosives must be brought into an area separately, but they can be disguised in many different ways. Cast like plaster, for example, into the shape of any familiar object, even painted the right colour. End of chapter.
What? What? That's the end of the chapter?
Yep, just this blatant, this is how you should build bombs to kill people with. Anyway, moving on. The complete lack of any craft in this. It's just... Oh. It's insulting. April 10, 1993. This is the first time in a week I've had some time to myself and have been able to relax. I'm in a Chicago motel with nothing to do until tomorrow morning, when I'll take a tour of the Evanston Power Project. Bill really did a professional job all round. Every Bill even has so many bills here. So many different types of bill in this paragraph. It's really hard to keep up.
Bill paid his bills with counterfeit bills. Fuck it up.
As he pecked at them with his bill. Later this week we will be making deliveries in Dallas and Atlanta to the Lone Stars. Kelly Turnbull's their contact, I'm sure, till he heads out to Indian country. I had a chance to do some thinking on the plane from Washington.
Sure thing.
Well. And it isn't just the organisation which has been doing a lot of recruiting lately. The Order is also growing at a rate unprecedented in the last 48 of its nearly 68 years of existence. What?
So the Order is actually
like
separate.
It's a secretive fascist group that's established.
A full-on cult.
And that established the organisation.
Yeah.
So 68 years, so back in the 20s, basically. So in the early 1920s, the Order was established, and now it's running a fascist paramilitary group in America and promoting the idea that the Nazis were actually the good guys. I wonder what the Order is. Right, place your bets, folks. What are the chances that Portuguese-speaking Adolf Hitler is going to actually turn up at some point as the leader of the organisation of the Order? Like, what the fuck?
See, this is why, traditionally speaking, revolutionary groups don't have, like, separate, like, side cults.
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to be participating in a revolution, not arsing about in robes.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Yes, we will march on the Capitol, but first, let's don our robes and do some chanting.
Yeah.
Like, what
let's
the
have a candlelit circle joke.
Yeah.
April 14. Problems. Nothing has gone right since I got back from Chicago. Then there was the delegation from the local Human Relations Council which visited the shop yesterday. 4 blacks. And a sick white male, all wearing council armbands, came into the print shop. They wanted to put a big poster in the shop window, the same kind one sees everywhere now, urging citizens to help fight racism by reporting suspicious persons to the political police and leave a container for donations on the counter. Carol was behind the counter at the time, and she told them, in effect, to go to hell. It's just straight up Kurt Schlitter.
Yeah.
They would have reported us to the political police if I hadn't heard the commotion and intervened. I came up the basement stairs with what I hoped was a convincingly Jewish expression on my face and went into and I'm gonna have to apologise for the fucking accent again. Try and make sense of this. With what I hoped was a convincingly Jewish expression on my face and went into a so what's going on here already routine. Like, could you imagine? These people are like hunting down racists and just a blatant Nazi comes walking in doing the worst impersonation of a Jewish man you've ever seen in your life. But of course, he effortlessly hoodwinks them.
Yeah, of course, because he's so good.
This is literally strikebreaker.
Yeah,
And no one ever notices.
Yeah. What's a Jewish expression on your face? You can't.
He was expressing his Judaism.
Yeah.
All I can say is I know what a dead cunt expression is. Here's a picture of that. Wow, here we go. It's all happening now.
Oh, I don't want it to happen.
I laid it on thick. Not too thick, I hope. Again, I'll apologise for this. We've now, again, another shift. First it was like as unoffensive as he could manage. Then it was in dialogue from another character. Now here it is just in the text, just him. The head began complaining indignantly to me about Carol's rebuff. Of course, I said. Leave your collection box here. It's for a good cause. As I officiously led the delegation toward the door, I ordered Carol back to work with my best Simon Legree manner. On the sidewalk, I overcame my revulsion while I chummily put an arm around the shoulders of the black spokesman, but the white, a sorry-looking specimen with pimples and an imitation afro, hesitated, turned, and said to me, maybe we ought to get that girl's name. Some of the things she said to us sounded definitely racist. Don't waste your time on her, I responded racistly. She is a dumb shiksa. I get rid of her soon. When I re-entered the shop, Bill, who had overheard the episode from the basement stairs, and Carol were convulsed with laughter. It's not really that funny, I admonished them with an effort at sternness. I had to do something right away, and if my pucker and my phony accent hadn't fooled the crew of subhumans, we'd be in real trouble now.
Subhumans?
Yep, like the way he has just plummeted straight into just unabashed Nazi
I was saying earlier how I was quite surprised with his restraint, and that's just gone now.
He was actually reeling himself back.
Yeah.
The last thing to go wrong was Catherine coming down with the flu last night. She was scheduled to take a load of money to Dallas this morning, but she was too sick to go. Do you think she's pregnant?
Oh, fuck. I hope so.
Yeah. We're going to time jump again and it will be little old Junior leading the fight against the Jewish black Marxist mafia conspiracy. And the cartels now, somehow.
And Israel.
Yeah. And China.
Why not? I just feel really sorry for Adolf Eichmann.
Yeah, he's the real victim in all this. It's like one of the stories I always love from that is Mengele, because obviously he managed to slip away and he escaped through like I think they called them the rat routes. The Nazis escaped. He went to South America and he was swimming one day off the coast and he had a massive stroke and drowned. Which like obviously it would have been nice for him to get like humiliated in front of him, but like what a miserable way to go.
Yeah, fuck him.
His fucking cunt mind fucking exploded and then he just fucking drowned. We're getting there.
Yeah. At least stuff started to happen.
Yeah.
I was not expecting rectal torture.
Pleasantly surprised by rectal torture. As indeed, I believe.